I can't make excuses for the Phoenix Suns anymore. There's nothing I can say to make things look better in Phoenix. When a super team, or at least what was supposed to be a super team, underperforms this badly, common sense says it's time for a rebuild. Trade away KD, maybe even D-Book, and please, for the love of everything, get Yousef Nurkic out of here. I guess you have no other choice but to keep Bradley Beal because of that no trade clause and start fresh. The rebuild needs to start now. They should be in the race for prospects like Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper because those are the kinds of teams that are gunning for those guys that Phoenix is losing to. The problem is, they don't even own their 2025 NBA draft pick. It's not like they can just say, okay, we tried with this big three, it didn't work, so let's be sellers at the trade deadline. We'll move these win-now assets in exchange for draft capital and cheaper flexible pieces. And even if they don't want to fully rebuild, which might take 3, 4, or even 5 years, they should at least consider a retool. Take a team like Miami, for example. They have a lot of drama surrounding them, but they might not need a full rebuild. Instead, they could retool after the Jimmy Butler era, focusing on players like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, who are emerging as the future of the team. Hero has really stepped up as the number one option. Miami also has some young talent like Nikola Jovic, Peli Larson, Jaime Jaquez, Khalil Ware, and Josh Christopher. These players could benefit from more playing time, and if Miami isn't competing for a title right now, they could develop them further during a transition period. Historically, Miami has done a great job developing young talent rather than chasing big names, as seen when they failed to land Damian Lillard during his messy departure from Portland. In contrast, Phoenix's situation is different. They don't have as many promising young players, and acquiring Kevin Durant cost them a lot, including multiple first-round picks and a key player like Cam Johnson, who has since turned into a valuable piece for contending teams. It's interesting how Phoenix gave up Cam to bring in KD, believing he couldn't contribute to a championship-contending team. Yet now, Cam is likely to be traded to another contender because most teams believe that he could actually be a really solid piece. If the season ended today, the Suns wouldn't even be a play-in team though, and they're currently 3 games below 500. At this point, it's time to play the blame game. It seems like we're getting close to the moment when Kevin Durant starts posting cryptic tweets, which will probably lead to a trade request. Some NBA insider is likely about to drop some breaking news soon. I'm not in the Suns locker room, but KD can't be happy. He's 36 years old and probably wants to add a third ring to his collection, and that's not happening in Phoenix. But I digress. It's not really about KD right now. Let's focus on the blame game. The clock is ticking, so let's dive in. First off, Yousef Nurkic has been a major disappointment. To put it bluntly, it's been a long time since Nurkic has been a starting caliber center, probably not since his days with Damian Lillard in Portland. Right now, the Suns seem ready to move on from him, but as expected, they're having trouble trading a center who shoots under 50% from the field, especially when his primary role is in the paint. Their best option is likely to wait until his contract is close to expiring and trade him then. Teams would prefer an expiring contract rather than committing to a player like him for several more years. But if there's one player I really want to point the finger at, it's Bradley Beal. The Suns were doing just fine before they traded Chris Paul for Beal. The season before acquiring Kevin Durant, they had the best regular season record in the league. The following year, they looked like serious contenders, and then made a blockbuster move to bring in KD at the trade deadline. However, KD suffered an ankle injury shortly after joining the team, causing him to miss a significant chunk of games. Despite that setback, the Suns finished the regular season with a 45 wins, 37 losses record, securing the 4th seed in the Western Conference. And while we all know how it ended, ring culture has made it so that anything short of winning the title is considered a failure. But the Suns' 2022-23 season was still a success, even though they lost to the Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. After all, the Nuggets went on to win the championship, so that's respectable. The real problem started when they tried to do too much by adding Bradley Beal into the mix. In their first season with him, they couldn't even make it past the second round. Then during last year's playoffs, Bradley Beal starts running his mouth when the Suns are down 3-0 to the Wolves, claiming he's never been swept, implying that wouldn't happen to him. So you'd expect him to have a breakout performance in Game 4 to prevent that, right? Well, the exact opposite happened. Beal ended up with more turnovers than field goals made. He's clearly the biggest issue on this roster. No matter how good he plays, his contract is just terrible. This is the first season since 2015 that Beal is scoring below 20 points per game, averaging just 17.8 this season. And now there are reports that the Suns are aggressively pursuing Jimmy Butler, but the Heat refused to take on Beal's contract, and he'd have to waive his no-trade clause. It's all a mess. This play right here really sums up the Suns' season. Beal blows an open layup, and even Ben Simmons is calling him out. This Suns team is a disaster overall. And while there are several factors, things really went wrong when they decided to acquire Beal. They'd probably be better off with him still rotting at Washington. But what do you think? Is Bradley Beal the biggest problem for the Suns? Tell me in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.